So when we start off here in this topic, I want to talk to you about something very important. I want to talk about gardening. Is anyone into gardening here? Anybody into gardening? Okay, we've got some gardeners here. So my mom is from Italy. She grew up in Tuscany. She moved to Chicago after World War II. So I grew up in the Chicago area. And my mom was an amazing gardener. I mean, she had beautiful flowers, all different colors coming up throughout the different seasons, fresh fruits and vegetables. It was amazing. But there's one important lesson about gardening that I've learned over the years, and that is this. Gardening is not genetic. Gardening is not genetic. My mom is a green thumb. I'm a black thumb. I'm really good at killing things. And so when my family, my wife and I, we moved to Colorado about 16 and a half years ago, my next door neighbor I found was like my mom. He had all these fresh fruits and vegetables, all these plants and fruit trees, and it was incredible. And then I noticed on the edge of our property line, there were some plants that had been on his side, but they were coming under the fence and growing on my side. I had all these plants there. So I asked him, "Oh, what are these plants?" And he said, "Oh, those are raspberry plants." And when I heard that, my heart sank. I thought, "Oh no, what do I have to do to take care of these things?" So I asked him, what do I need to do? And he says, "Oh, raspberry plants? They're really hardy. You don't have to do anything. They'll take care of themselves." And I thought, cool, that's my kind of plant. So that first summer, my kids really enjoyed those raspberries. They were so excited. They were giving me updates throughout the summer. Dad, those little berries coming out. Dad, the berries are changing color. Dad, they're ripe now. Dad, thank you so much for the raspberries. And I thought, shucks, I'm just such a good gardener. This was a lot of fun that first summer. But the next summer, my neighbor moved away, so I couldn't ask him questions. But I still had my raspberry plants. But we had a big drought in Colorado that summer. And I didn't need to water my plants the previous summer. The occasional rain was enough. But this summer I could tell by 4th of July weekend, things weren't going well for my raspberry plants. They just didn't look healthy. And so I figured maybe they need some water. So I started waking up in the morning before work and going out and watering my plant. And I did that for like a week and a half, 2 weeks, and they were still struggling. So I thought maybe they need a lot of water. So then I started my double-a-day water treatment plan. Got up in the morning and watered, and then watered in the evening after work. And I did that for another week or two, and they were still struggling. They're wilting, they're turning brown on the edges of the leaf, and I'm thinking, what is going on here? And one night I'm out there watering, and then suddenly I realized what the real problem is. It was good that I was watering my plants. They did need water that summer, but there was something that was attacking my plants. And I didn't realize it. It was something called bindweed. Have you ever heard of bindweed? Do you have that here? Pennsylvania, bindweed. You know that parable Jesus tells about the weed that chokes the plant? That has new meaning for me. Because that's what was going on all through my little raspberry garden. That you could see this network of weeds reaching its tentacles out, just literally wrapping themselves around my plant, choking the life out of my plant. And here I was thinking, oh, my plants just need water. But they needed me to be watchful, protective of the weeds that were choking it. And I share this story because as I'm blessed to travel to so many dioceses in the States and overseas, anywhere in the Western world, when I present to bishops and to priests and to school superintendents and parish leaders, I hear a very similar story. And it goes something like this. Hey, these people, they were coming to the parish. We saw them every week, but now we just don't see them anymore. They were really involved. There's this couple that were volunteering, and now they don't even go to Mass anymore. You know, they came every week to that faith formation class, and now they're just not coming. What happened? We gave them the faith. I hear this especially in the area Rick was referring to earlier, though, about RCIA. The U.S. bishops did a study a number of years ago showing the effectiveness of RCIA in the United States, and it showed that 1 out of 3 people who go through the RCIA process stop practicing their faith within 3 to 5 years. 1 out of 3. And so we're giving them the faith, but something's not sticking like it used to. I hear this story even more sadly from many parents, many grandparents, that'll say things like this, we raised our kids Catholic. We gave them the faith. We put them in Catholic schools. We got them the sacraments, confirmation, maybe even had them in a youth group. But then they get into high school and they start asking questions. Questions like, why do I need a church? Why do I need a church? I mean, I'm a good person. I've got good values. I believe in God. Why do I need a church? I'm spiritual. I've got spirituality. Why do I need religion? Why do I need some church? Why do I need to go to church, Mom? Mom and Dad are wondering, man, what happened? We gave them the faith. Then the kid goes off to college, maybe comes home one spring break, and one of those hot-button moral issues comes up at the dinner table. And the kid says something like, look, I wouldn't live like that. I mean, that's not a choice I would make, but if someone else wants to make that choice, if someone else wants to live that way, that's okay for them. Who are we to judge? Why is the Catholic Church so intolerant? Why are we so judgmental? Mom and Dad are wondering, what happened? I mean, we gave them the faith. And then the kid graduates from college. He gets a job. And they fall in love. And they start living together. And living together. And living together. And Mom and Dad eventually go up to the son and says, hey, son, have you ever thought about marriage? But as soon as the father or mother says the M word, it's as if the kid has an anaphylactic allergic reaction. Whoa, marriage! What are you talking about? Marriage! Oh my goodness, why do I need marriage? I mean, we like each other, we get along, we got a good place to live, we got good jobs, we're making good money. Why do I need marriage? Why do I need some certificate from some church? How many of you have heard stories like that? It's everywhere. All around the United States, all around the world, from Dublin to Dubai to Melbourne. I hear the same story from parish leaders, diocesan leaders, school leaders, but most especially leaders in the home, families, parents and grandparents. Anywhere that's been touched by the modern secular age, there's a virus that enters the hearts of young people and gets them to doubt the truth of Jesus Christ, the truth of our faith, that there is truth in and of itself, a truth that's true for everyone. You see, we live in a world that we say is secular, and secularism is absence of religion. But sometimes people might say, it's a shame we don't have religion as much, we don't have prayer in schools, and we can't talk about God in the public sphere, but but at least it's neutral. Secularism's neutral. It's open-minded and open to all views. It's neutral, like Switzerland. I want us to see secularism is not neutral. It is a certain ideology. The very decision to set aside God is a certain point of view. And the secular culture is far from neutral. The leaders of the secular culture are some of the most aggressive evangelists in the modern age. They are constantly selling us on a certain worldview, a certain vision of life. They're constantly imposing a certain view upon us. They have very strong opinions about the things that matter most in life. The things that matter most, like what brings us happiness. They have strong opinions about this is what will make you happy. What is a successful human life? They have strong opinions about that. What is love? What is marriage? What is true beauty? They have very strong opinions about this. What does it mean to be a man? What does it mean to be a woman? The most basic things. They have very strong opinions, and they're constantly trying to sell it to us on our screens, on social media, through Hollywood, in the educational system in many places. Our young people especially are being bombarded with an alternative vision of life that is far from neutral. It actually opposes what Jesus Christ has revealed about those most fundamental things. And so what we want to see is that in the culture, there's all these weeds that are out there, weeds that are undermining our faith life. And as Catholics, as Catholic men, especially as leaders in our parishes, leaders in our communities, and most of all, leaders in our own homes, we have to do a lot more than just give the people around us water. we got to be aware of those weeds. My plants needed water. It was good. But I've got to be mindful of the weeds that were attacking my plants. The same is true with our faith life. I have to be very guarded about what I'm letting in, because the culture is constantly trying to wrap its tentacles around us and choke the life of faith out of me and out of my children and the people around me. We just have to be aware of that. We are not living in neutral territory. Just living and breathing in the United States, we're constantly getting doses of a view of life that is off. What John Paul II called a deformed outlook on life. And what I want to do today is I want to talk about how important it is that we give the right worldview. We've got to talk about it and bring the truth before our own minds and constantly talk about it with the next generation. Because I know this as a dad, if all I do is teach right catechism, right doctrine, orthodoxy, which is, by the way, I want to be clear, is absolutely essential. We have to teach the faithful teachings of Jesus Christ passed on through the Catholic Church. It's just, if that's all I do, it's not enough. It's simply not enough today. I have to do more. If all I do is make sure my kids know that there's 12 apostles and 10 commandments and 7 sacraments and 3 persons of the Trinity and 1 God, they're going to have almost zero chance of that faith surviving in the secular culture that they're going to step out into. They need a lot more than just the right doctrines. We have to do that, but I have to prepare them for the weeds they're going to encounter. It's kind of like inoculation. So I'm going to talk about vaccines, and I'm not going to go controversial. I'm not talking about COVID vaccines. I'm talking about traditional vaccines. Let's just talk about that for a moment. So most Americans would always get, the traditional vaccines for measles, mumps, rubella, things like that. And what the traditional vaccines do is it introduces into the body like something that looks like the disease that the body might encounter someday. So that then when you do encounter the real disease, your body knows how to attack it. That's what we do with that inoculation. And most people do that with the body. My question is, something more important than the body is the soul. So much more important. Do we spiritually inoculate ourselves and our children? Do we talk to our kids about the things that matter most? Are we preparing them for what they're going to encounter? That's what I want to look at today. There's so many cultural weeds out there. And before we even get into this particular topic, this here of relativism, I want to address one big weed out there. Very basic one here. Ready? It's, what is love? What is love? This is so basic. Some of you are wondering, why is Dr. Sri going to talk about love? We all know what love is. But you know what? If you don't get love really right, if you're just off a little bit on love, you're going to get everything wrong. You're not going to understand God, because the Bible says, who is God? God is love. And I'm made in the image and likeness of that God who is love. So if I don't understand love right, then I'm not going to understand God. I'm not going to understand me. I'm not going to understand my Catholic faith. I'm certainly not going to understand marriage and family life. I really got to get love right. And our culture doesn't get love right. Our culture has a very skewed view of love. We use the word love so loosely in our culture, right? We say things like, I love coffee. I love ice cream. I love pizza. I love steak. I love bacon. I'm from Chicago, so you might say, I love the Chicago Cubs. Hey, being a Cubs fan is super Catholic, okay? No, seriously, it is, because there's a rich theology of suffering. Some of you are going to say, oh, but you got your World Series in 2016. I say, yeah, I'm going to have to wait 108 more years before the next one. You Phillies at least get to go every once in a while. But we use the word love so loosely, right? If I say, I love coffee, I love pizza, I love bacon, I love the Chicago Cubs, and I turn to my wife, Beth, and say, hey, I love you too, what does that really mean? What we want to do is see what real love is. I think what the world thinks of love, I think when it uses the word love, it means you do something for me. Anyone love coffee? Any coffee lovers here? Oh, I love coffee. I love coffee. I love the smell of coffee. I love the taste of coffee. I love the sound of coffee percolating in the morning. I love coffee. I love how it wakes me up. It gets me ready for the day. I'm energized. I love coffee. It does something for me. Same thing. Anyone love a good plate of steak? Come on. It's a men's conference. Come on, guys. I love a great steak, medium rare, maybe with some sauteed mushrooms on top or something. Oh, I just love a great juicy steak. It satisfies my appetites, fulfills my cravings. I just love a great plate of steak. But here's the deal. I love coffee, I love steak, but once I'm done with my cup of coffee or I'm done with my plate of steak, the love affair is over and I move on to the next thing that's going to do something for me. That's the culture's view of love. And so when we apply that to the people in our lives, the younger generation, when they hear about love, what is love? Love is you do something for me. This is what love is according to most of the love songs that are out there, on people's playlists. It's, you make me feel so good. You do something for me. I can't live without you. Yes, you can. You live 19 years without this person. You really can. All I need is you. No, you need water, oxygen, and Jesus. Many other things. So we say these things, but it's all about what you do for me. You give me this romantic feeling. You make me feel good about myself. And so as long as those feelings are there, this is love. But when you lost that love and feeling, well, whoa, the relationship's over. And you move on to go find someone else that is going to give you those feelings. I've met young people that have honestly told me this, that they break up with people at about the 4-month mark. Because that's the average on when the feelings fade. And then this one woman says, I really like those feelings, so I break up with the guy to go find a new guy that will give me those feelings again. This is what the younger generation is being raised in. Even good Catholics who listen to all this music from the culture. I've met them. They get into marriage, and I'm wondering, why is my marriage not like the love songs I'm listening to? This is the effect of the culture. Or love is not just feelings. Love is you make me feel not alone. Or love is like Ed Sheeran. I'm in love with your body. I'm in love with the shape of you, in his famous song. And though my heart's kind of in it, it's really just about your body. He basically just comes right out and just so crassly says it. A woman is just reduced to a body that is exploited for sexual pleasure. To look at, to touch. That's the modern view of love. Love is I get sexual pleasure out of you. This is so far from what real love is. Do we have a cross in this room? Oh, right here. Oh, there we go. I see Mary. This one's kind of like, okay. All right, so here we go. Here's Jesus. This is love. This is love. The God who is love came down to earth to show us what real love is. Because we're made in the image and likeness of the God who is love. We're only going to be happy when we live real love. But real love, if you notice, is not you do something for me. When Jesus is on the cross, he's not saying you make me feel so good. Real love involves sacrifice. Who knows the official Catholic definition of love? Does anyone here know it? The official Catholic, who said it? Okay, Eric. Eric got the right answer. All of you should know this. If you don't remember anything else from this conference, remember the official Catholic definition of love. What is it? To will the good of the other. Everyone say that. You see, it's so other-centered. It's seeking what's best for the other person. That's what real love is. Jesus on the cross dies because he wants to will our salvation so we can be reunited to him. That's real love. But if young people grow up thinking love is you do something for me, you make me feel good, you make me feel not alone, you give me pleasure, their whole life is going to be built on a foundation that will not stand. The false view of love in the culture is ruining young people's lives. I work with tens of thousands of young people around the country, and they tell me about the emptiness they feel in modern hookup culture and dating relationships. They tell me about how they doubt they're ever going to find true love, someone that will love them for who they are and not what they do for them. Many young couples end up in so many struggles in married life because they're not built on the solid foundation of love. How many dads in this room? Where are the dads? Do you talk to your kids about love? Do you name what real love is? Do you share with them the true definition of love? Do you talk about the model of true love? And then do you contrast what the world is offering? How about the priests in this room? Any priests here? Do you preach about what real love is? And do you contrast it for your people on what the world is saying love is? Because here's the thing. Spiritual fathers and us natural fathers, if you don't talk to your children about love, I want you to know that the world is constantly talking to them about it. If you don't talk about it, they're getting doses of an alternative view that's going to choke their faith life. This is just one of the many weeds that are out there. And when we pass on the faith, we can't just teach, here's the 7 sacraments and here's the basics. we've got to address the weeds. Amen? Amen? Now let's talk about one of the biggest weeds, and that's that idea of relativism. What is moral relativism? It's the idea that there is no truth, that truth is relative. In other words, it's dependent on each individual. Each individual gets to pick their own morality, their own truth, their own morality. There's no truth that's true for everyone. This is one of the most fundamental lies that the devil has sown in the modern age. And we have to address it. So I'm going to address it in a couple ways. If I had more time, I would go through all 6 points. But since I only have 5 hours with you, just kidding. Since I only have about a half hour with you all left here, I'm going to just go through a few of these. Ready? So let's do the first one. I want you to say the first one. Say this. Law equals love. Law equals love. Now, why do I have you scream that? It's because the last thing our modern culture thinks about when it thinks about moral law, Catholic moral teaching, the last thing our world thinks about is love. When they hear about the moral law, people in the secular culture, they just think, oh, that's just your religion, right? These are just random rules from your religion. So you have that religion and you want to follow those rules. Those are the hoops you want to jump through in life. That's fine for you. But I don't have your religion, so don't impose your rules from your religion on me. That's what they think morality is all about. What we have to see is that the moral law is not about just something, oh, just because I'm Catholic. The moral law isn't just some random rule. It's not about some test. It's not about, oh, this is just God's testing you, to see if you'll obey. That's not what this is about. It flows from his love. It's all about love. As dads, do you ever give rules in your home? Yeah, so, I remember a true story here. One of my kids, little Carl, he's big now. He's 16 and driving and everything. But when we first moved to Colorado, this kid was a climber. He was our first Colorado baby. Do you ever have a climber in your family? This kid, he would find a chair, and he'd climb up on the chair. He'd take the chair, move the chair, and then climb up on it as like a 1-year-old. Then he can climb up onto the cabinet and then climb up and get something, up here. And he was just like, this kid, he loved altitude. I think it was the Denver thing, being up at Mile High City. But he was 13 months old, and in the backyard, he saw his siblings going on the monkey bars. And guess what Carl did? He climbed up, and as a 13-month-old, then reached out and found himself hanging on the monkey bars for dear life as a 13-month-old. The older sisters came running in. Dad, Carl's stuck on the monkey bars. And I came running out, and I see Carl hanging there like this with a look of horror on his face. And his older brother just kind of like holding him up like this to keep him from dying on the monkey bars. So I rescued Carl that day, but it was then that I issued my monkey bar decree. I said, Carl, do not go on the monkey bars. Now, why did I give that law? Is it because I just want to control you? Is that it? Because I just want to control my son? Is that it? Or is it because I'm testing him? That's what a lot of people think. The moral law is it's God testing us. Is that it? Carl, don't go on the monkey bars. Why, Dada? Don't ask why. Just obey me. I'm testing you to see if you'll submit to my fatherly authority. No, that's not it. I'm doing it because I love him. I know that if he goes up there, he could get really hurt. He could fall. So a little 13-month-old get really, really hurt. So the law flows from my love for him. I know what's best for him. The rule flows from my relationship with him. And I think this is what's missing in the modern era, is that the devil gets us to separate the law from the love. He gets us just to look at the rule apart from the relationship. And what we want to do is see, that the law flows from the Father's heart. God loves us. He made us. He knows how we work. He wants us to be happy. I think of it as like the instruction manual. I got a new laptop recently at work. So I got a new Dell computer. And it comes with an instruction manual. Who here likes to read instruction manuals? No, there's about 8% of you. You raise your hand. You're honest. There's others of you that do like it, but you're just not raising your hand. Okay, all right, so there's some people like that. I'm not like that, but I have friends that are, and they tell me that in the instruction manual for the computer, it says things like don't leave it in temperatures too hot, don't keep it in temperatures too cold. My favorite one is do not use in water. Can you imagine if I had those instruction manuals and I'm looking at this, and it says do not use in water? Dell computer? Who are you to tell me what to do with my laptop? This is my computer. Don't impose your views of computers on me. Am I free to break the computer rule book and take my laptop while I'm going water skiing? Am I free to do that? Sure, I'll destroy the laptop in the process, but I'm free to do that. In the same way, am I free to break the moral law that God gave us? Yeah, but I'll break myself and I'll hurt other people in the process. See, God is like the divine manufacturer. He made us. He knows how we work. He knows if we do certain things in life, we're going to thrive. We're going to be happy. He knows if we don't go along with this plan, we just do our own thing, we're going to be frustrated. We'll be empty. We're not going to be satisfied. So the law flows from God's heart. That's why the scriptures say that God's word, his law, is a lamp to our feet, a light for our path. That's the context for understanding the moral law. It's not just a bunch of rules. It's not about restriction. It's all about love. And so what I like to say to people is, do you want to love people? Do you want to love people? Do you want others to experience more love in this world? Then you want to follow God's plan. You follow God's plan. He loves us so much. He revealed the pathway to happiness, to real flourishing. And whenever we try to do little shortcuts and try to do our own little pathway to happiness, it never works out. But let's go to the second point. This is a bigger point here, practically. I want to highlight. There's a big difference between making a judgment and judging someone's soul. A big difference between making a judgment and judging someone's soul. Do you ever watch, like, maybe on CNN or PBS or, I don't know, some news show? You have a secular news show, and they're interviewing somebody, maybe more a Christian, Christian conservative person, and maybe they're talking about one of those big issues. Let's say it's abortion. It's been in the news a lot lately. So let's say they're interviewing someone, and then the Christian says something like, well, abortion is wrong. And then the other person from the secular broadcast world all of a sudden takes out this Bible verse out of their pocket. Oh, they know this one Bible verse. Oh, they've memorized this Bible verse, and they love to throw it at us Christians. What Bible verse is this? I doubt that they do Lectio Divina every day, but this one Bible verse, they know it. What's that verse? Don't judge, right? That's what they take that part. Don't judge. Don't you know your Jesus said don't judge, so who are you to judge? And they throw that at us. And what do we Catholics do when they throw that verse at us? You know what we do? We go like this. I don't know what to say. They're quoting Jesus against me. I want to help you. How do you answer that question? It's true, Jesus said don't judge. But did you know there's other times in the Bible Jesus commands us to judge? He says we must judge. He tells the 12 apostles, later in Matthew 19, he says, you will sit on 12 thrones and you will judge the 12 tribes of Israel. So sometimes you're supposed to judge, sometimes you're not supposed to judge. Paul's letter to the Corinthians says the spiritual man judges all things. So if I want to be a true, mature spiritual man, I need to judge. But then Jesus other times says, don't judge. How do you know when to judge and when not to judge? It has to do with what you're judging. You see, when in the Sermon on the Mount, when Jesus says, don't judge lest you be judged, what's he talking about there? If you read Luke's account of it, he says, don't judge lest you be judged. Don't condemn lest you be condemned. What Jesus is going after is judging someone's soul, condemning someone. We should never judge someone's soul. Someone's spiritual status before God is between them and God alone. I don't see the whole picture. I don't know the person's whole life story. I can never make a judgment on someone's spiritual status before God. We should never judge someone's soul. Amen? Amen. At the same time, does that mean I should never make judgments in life? No, God gave us a mind. He wants us to use it. How many of you, when you came here for this conference, did you use Google Maps or Waze or something like that to get here? All right, so it tells you, take the highway, get off here, and you made a judgment, I'm going to follow this, right? You used your mind. Does that mean you're a mean, intolerant person? No, God gives you a mind. He wants you to use it. If there's a big blizzard passing through here, you go, I'm going to get my winter coat. You make a judgment, right? That doesn't mean you're a judgmental person. God gave us a mind. He wants us to make judgments. Now, let me ask you a question, though. That's one thing to make a judgment about your own actions. Can we as Christians make judgments about other people's actions? Can we ever do that? Let me see. Yes or no? Show me. Whoa, I'm seeing a lot of you nodding yes. Wait, Rick, is this a Catholic conference? Don't they know the Bible? Don't they know Jesus said don't judge? I can't believe there's a lot of people here saying we should judge other people's actions. Let me explain this here. Let's say you had a friend that really wanted to get here for the conference. They wanted to get here on time to hear Devin Schott this morning. It's really important to them. And you're talking to them on the phone, and they're on the main highway. But you know, because you're looking at Google Maps, there's a big accident on the highway. It's closed down up ahead. And if he stays on that highway, he's going to be like 90 minutes late. Can you use your mind to make a judgment? He should follow, the back roads to get here. Can you do that? Can you use your mind to make a judgment? If he doesn't get off the highway, he's just not going to get here in time? Can you do that? Are you judging his soul when he does that? No, you're making a judgment, right? If I see my little 8-year-old daughter, Kiara, getting close to a busy street, can I use my mind to make a judgment that she shouldn't run out there? That's not good for her. If my phone goes off when I'm giving a talk, can I use my mind and make a judgment that I should turn off my sound so it doesn't distract you all? Can I do that? Hypothetically. Am I judging you? Am I a judgmental person if I make that judgment to do that? Of course not, right? God gave us a mind. You can make the judgment. He had to actually probably turn the sound off on his phone. So we make judgments all the time about other people. We're not condemning them. Like when I see little Kiara get too close to that busy street, and I say, "Oh, Kiara, don't get too close to the street." Am I judging her soul? Am I saying, "Don't get too close to the street because if you do, you're going to rot in hell"? Am I doing that? No. I'm just putting it together. It's not going to be good for her, right? Are you all comfortable with that? Okay. Now I'm going to go the next step, though. I'm going to go one more step. Can you use your mind and make a judgment about someone else's moral actions? Can you make a judgment about their moral choices? Can you do that? Wow, a lot of you are still saying yes. Are you hearing this, Rick? This is wow. Very, Jesus said don't judge. I'm just really shocked here. Let's talk about that one here. Let's say that there's a young gal. She goes off to Penn State, and she's freshman there, and she's sleeping around with one man after another, after another, after another. Can I use my mind and make a judgment that's not good for her? Can I do that? Can I use my mind and make a judgment she's not going to find the love that she's looking for this way? Can I do that? Can I use my mind and make a judgment she deserves so much more than that? Can I do that? Can I judge her soul? Can't judge her soul. I don't know her background. I don't know her situation. Who am I to judge, Pope Francis would say, and rightly so. Again, we only see certain little aspects. We notice she's doing this, but I don't know the whole story of her life. God sees all of that, and he takes all of that into consideration. I don't know this poor gal. Maybe she grew up in a really dysfunctional family and never experienced authentic love. God's going to take that into consideration. I don't know how God's going to weigh that, but God will weigh that the way he does. I can't do that. Maybe this poor gal was abused, and that would really wound her and might explain some of her behavior. God's going to take all that in consideration. Maybe she was taught by modern liberal educators that said things like, "This is what it means to be a liberated woman. Use your sexuality this way." I don't know that whole story. Only God does. So I can never judge someone's soul. But does that mean I can't make a judgment about what she's doing? I can never judge her soul, but here's my question for you. Should I ever talk to her about it? Should I ever bring this up with her? If she's someone God has put in your life, she's your sister, she's your friend, she's your niece. Now, if she's a complete stranger, I don't recommend just showing up at her dorm and just saying, "Hi, you don't know me, but you're in mortal sin." That's weird. I'm not talking about that. But I'm saying, if God put this person in your life, do you have a responsibility to talk to them about it? If you love them. If you love them. Hey, let's go back. Do you remember? Let's go back to the beginning. What's the definition of love? Who remembers? Say it again. What's the definition of love? to will the good of the other. Do you will the good of this person? Do you want what's best for them? Because if you really love them, you will share the truth with them. But our modern relativistic culture gets us to say, oh, no, never talk about these things. We never talk about the things that matter most in life. Because that would be intolerant and judgmental. And I want to flip this on its head. If you want to be a loving person, you need to be willing to talk about the things that matter most with the people who matter most. Because to say, I don't really want to talk about this is to say, I don't care about you. Now, I want to be clear. I'm going to give a nuance here. I don't want you to take this as if you have to have this conversation today, right away. I don't want anyone leaving here going, oh, wow, I've been wanting to talk to my brother about his sin. So I'm going to call my brother and say, hey, Edward Sree was in town, and he told me if I love you, I got to talk to you about your sin. I'm not talking about that. Maybe you haven't talked to your brother since last Thanksgiving, and you might want to build up a relationship with your brother. You might want to make sure your brother knows you love him, no matter what choices he makes in life, no matter what lifestyle he pursues. You love him, and you're always going to be there for him. Does he really know that? I wouldn't go start nitpicking on his moral life until you have a good friendship. Maybe your brother doesn't believe in God. You might want to start with God, as opposed to just starting with a moral issue. You might want to introduce him to the person of Jesus Christ. That might be more helpful for him to have a vision of God's love and his mercy. You might want to talk about confession and how no matter what choices we make, it doesn't matter in the past. God can forgive you in the present and give you a new future. Just go to confession. He needs to know that God is so gentle, so patient, so willing to forgive. All we have to do is turn to him. There'd be many reasons why we don't pick up the phone and call our brother today. But what I want to caution us against is what the relativistic culture gets us to do, and that is to never talk about these things. We never bring these things up. That is not love. So you have to, every situation is different. I hope you're catching there's nuance here. Every situation is different. I don't know your situation, but I don't want you to just knee-jerk reaction. I'm going to call and just show him his sin. But on the other hand, I don't want you to be cowardly and never bring up tough topics with the people you love. I advise that you take time to pray. You pray about that brother or that friend or that sister or that your parents, your children, whatever it is. You pray about him. Lord, what should I say? And prepare me for that moment. I pray that one day, Jesus, I can have that conversation. I pray that you open up the door for me to be able to talk about these things. Help me, Jesus. And you're offering sacrifices for your brother. You're praying for the chance to talk. That's the key. You don't have to do the conversation today, but you're hoping to have that chance. On Good Friday, there were times when Jesus did not speak. He was silent. That was the most prudent thing to do. But when he did have to speak, did he cower and hide? No, he didn't. He revealed himself as the truth. This is why I came into this world, that I might reveal the truth. And what did Pilate do? He came back and said, what is truth? And it's that message of Pilate that is rampant in our culture today. The philosophy of Pilate, that there's no truth, that everyone can just make up their own truth. That's the dominant spirit of the modern age. But notice what that led to on Good Friday. Because Pilate didn't have a truth that was grounding him. He knew Jesus was innocent. He knew what a real revolutionary looked like. He knew that Jesus was not a real threat to Rome. But he had his own truth, so to speak, to deal with. He's worried about the pressure and what people are going to think of him and the crowds and Pilate. You're no friend of Caesar if you let this man go. And he's so scared about his own job and his status with Caesar. So what does he do? Because he doesn't believe in truth, a truth that's true for everyone. He has his own truth, which is self-preservation, protecting his own job and his own career and his own reputation. What happens when he doesn't have truth to guide him? An innocent man suffers and dies. And that's what happens in our culture. When we don't have truth guiding us, millions and millions of babies are killed in our country. When we don't have truth guiding us, many men just walk away from their wives and just run off with other women, leaving children and a wife behind, and they suffer. And in our culture, we can't say there's anything wrong with a husband cheating on his wife. You can't say there's anything wrong about a husband just abandoning his wife and his children. In fact, we have to celebrate that in our modern culture because, that man chose. He's choosing to do what's happy for him, what works for him. there's no truth guiding us, we do things that hurt people. And I don't want to be a hurtful person. I want to be a loving person. So we got to talk about the things that matter most in life. Because here's the thing, indifference isn't love. And relativism gets us to be indifferent to the people in my life. If you're talking to your friend on the phone, you're here at the conference, and you're looking at Google Maps, and you know that your friend is on that highway where there's a big traffic jam up ahead, and he's going to be 90 minutes late, and you talk to your friend, and you're like, well, you don't say anything to him about the traffic jam. You don't tell him about the better roads to get here. You just say, well, see you whenever you get here. Is that love? Are you a good friend? No. If I see my son Carl hanging on the monkey bars, I'm like, well, if that works for you. I mean, I wouldn't do that if I was a 13-month-old, but I don't want to be judgmental. Is that love? If I see my little daughter getting ready to run out in the busy street and I say, I don't want to be judgmental. I don't want to say anything. Is that love? Indifference is not love. And relativism gets us to be indifferent to the people around us. I'm emphasizing this point because I've done this talk hundreds of times, especially to people in their 20s and 30s, college students and young professionals. And they often tell me this point is really helpful because they want to be a loving person. I remember many of them say, I used to think to be a loving person means never bring up those topics. You've helped us to see, Dr. Sri, that to be a loving person, I want to share the truth. Amen? Amen? All right, let's go to the next one here. Relativism is not neutral. What do I mean by that? Relativism often presents itself as like neutral. It's open-minded. We're open to all points of views. But as I've already alluded to, it is its own perspective. It is its own philosophy, its own way of looking at the world, and they're constantly imposing it on us. If you dare to stand out of the relativism world and you dare to say, I think marriage is this. This is what it means to be a man. This is what it means to be a woman. You will be hated. You'll be opposed. You'll get a slap on the hand. You'll be labeled intolerant. I'm going to share with you a true story, but it's a story that has similarities with countless stories I've heard before from young people. I'm going to tell you about a young college student. She came up from a good Catholic family, went off to college, wanted to be involved with her faith, got involved at the Newman Center, was going to Mass every Sunday, and involved in the campus ministry. But her first semester, she was at a party, and the topic of marriage came out. Gay marriage came up. And somebody asked her, what do you think about gay marriage? And she says, no, I think marriage is between a man and a woman. That's all she said. That's all she said. And then some guy at this party starts yelling at her and literally got up on a chair and yelled at everyone, hey, everybody, come over here. Did you hear what she said? Did you hear what she said about gay marriage? She says she thinks gay marriage is wrong, that it's immoral. Can you believe that? So all of a sudden, everyone's coming up to her saying, how could you say that? Why are you imposing your views of marriage on everybody else? Why are you Christians always so judgmental? And she kept trying to explain, and the more she talked, the more she felt like she was digging her own grave. And after 20 minutes of being emotionally bullied by this guy and his friends, she eventually left the party in tears. But that night, she was changed. She felt the cost of following Jesus Christ and standing up for truth. And it was painful. And she just said, I don't ever want to go through that again. I want to keep my faith, but I don't want to ever have to stand up for my faith and suffer like that again. So you know what she did? She just did one little simple move where when moral topics would come up, she would just add 2 little words to all of her moral statements. Just 2 simple little words to kind of soften her moral convictions. So she would say something like this. The topic of abortion comes up. She'd say, I think abortion is wrong. And then she would add 2 words, for me. For me. Or if the topic of marriage came up again, she goes, I think marriage is between a man and a woman, for me. Just 2 little words. Seems pretty harmless, doesn't it? You can get where she's coming from, right? Because by adding those 2 little words, what it does is, she can connect with her faith because she still says abortion's wrong. She can still say, I think marriage is between a man and woman because she wants to have some connection with her Catholic faith or with Jesus. But by saying, for me, she can fit into her new reality on a very secular relativistic campus. And saying for me, it just softens it a bit so people don't, they don't look down on her. They're like, well, I mean, that's kind of weird that you think that, but you're not trying to say that I have to live that way. You're not trying to say that this is true for everyone, that abortion is always wrong, or marriage is this way for everyone. So it was a way for her to connect with her Catholic past, but still kind of try to fit in her new secular present. But here's the problem. When we play games with morality and we start adding for me, something fundamentally changes in our soul. Because now all of a sudden the deepest truths are just like about personal taste, personal opinion. It's just for me. I'm going to get a show of hands here. If you had to choose between chocolate ice cream and vanilla ice cream, what would you choose? How many would choose chocolate? Who thinks chocolate's better? All right, who thinks vanilla's better? Okay. Is there really a right answer? Chocolate, of course. This is based on personal taste, right? Or some people love NFL football. Some people like Major League Baseball. Some people like hockey. Some people like the NBA. We can all have different tastes. Some people like this kind of music or this kind of... It's just based on personal taste. Sometimes our tastes can change. When I was a kid growing up, I loved NFL football. Oh my goodness, I knew everything about NFL football. I grew up in the era of the Bears' rise to the Super Bowl. Remember the Super Bowl shuffle and the refrigerator pairing? Remember all that? I got to go to the Super Bowl game in New Orleans and watch them win the Super Bowl. It was amazing. So I was really into NFL football. Now I don't really even follow NFL football. Mostly because the Bears don't really do that well. But the bigger thing is that I follow what the rest of the world calls football. In the United States, we call soccer. So like my tastes have changed over the years, right? So if we make big things like what is marriage, what is love, what's the purpose of sexuality, when does human life begin, is abortion okay? When we take like big questions of life and we put them on the plane of, oh, it's just like chocolate or vanilla, or it's like NFL football or EPL soccer, it's like, it doesn't really matter, right? That's what we're doing at that point is we're playing games with truth itself. And we no longer have a foundation, a moral compass to guide us, some standard outside of us. Everything's just for me. And so you know what happened to this girl? This girl was started happening later in that same freshman year, since she no longer had a truth outside of her to guide her. It's all about personal tastes. And so when she faces certain moral choices, certain moral dilemmas, certain temptations, she no longer has a standard to guide her. It's just all about for me, for me. And she can say, well, for me, I used to never do these things in the past. But for me, maybe right now, it's okay if I just do this once. I'll just experiment with this. Well, that wasn't that bad. I'm not a bad person. Maybe if I do it a second time. Maybe if I do it a third time. And she starts experimenting with lifestyles she'd never imagined herself doing. And by the end of her freshman year, she stopped going to church on Sunday, became a moral relativist, rejected her Catholic faith. It's a slippery slope once you play for me morality. And I've shared this with many young people. Many young people tell me, yep, once you do for me morality, all of a sudden you don't have that foundation anymore. And you'll wake up 2 or 3 years later and realize you're not the person you used to be. And here's why. Can I tell you why this happens? It's because, my friends, truth is not just some abstract concept that we can play games with for me. For me, truth is this. For me, no, this is true. No. As Catholics, we know truth is a person. Truth is a person, Jesus Christ. And that truth, Jesus died for us. And so when I start playing games and saying, for me, this is what truth is, I'm driving a wedge between me and Jesus. And I pray, Jesus, I love you. I want to be faithful to you no matter how much pressure we get from the culture. I pray that you help me help all these men to always follow you, to always be willing to be like St. John and your blessed mother, that we're there with you on Calvary. Help us never to be afraid of the cross. Help us, Jesus, always to be willing to stand close to you, who are the way, the truth, and the life. And I pray, Jesus, that you give us the courage as we face the pressures of our secular age, to never deny you, to never play games with truth, to always follow you fully. Give us the grace to do it with great humility, with great love, but with faithfulness to you who are the truth. Now, I want to give you a little line that you can keep in your pocket. And this is what I'll close with here. One little line that you can keep in your pocket for when you have those conversations around the water cooler in the copy room at the office, or, Thanksgiving's coming up. Do you all have like a certain relative that shows up at Thanksgiving and you're always like, oh boy, I wonder how this is going to go? Do you know what I'm talking about? Does that ever happen? Maybe do you have that family member or friend that just thinks you're weird for being really Catholic? Does that ever happen? Oh, 10 minutes? Oh, I thought I only had 5.
You're doing real good.
Oh, I get an extra 5. Oh, that's like a bonus. Okay, I love it. Okay, anyway, that means I won't rush. Okay. But you know what I'm talking about? So I'm going to call this person Aunt Sally, okay, just for the sake of conversation. Imagine you're there with Aunt Sally, and the topic of abortion comes up, some of those big issues, and you say, well, abortion's wrong. And Aunt Sally comes back and says to you, why are you so intolerant? How come you're so judgmental? What do you do at that moment? You ready? Here's the line. Here's what you do. You come right back to her and say, excuse me, Aunt Sally, are you judging me? Are you judging me, Aunt Sally? It's funny because that's the last thing the relativist is expecting, is for the Catholic to play the don't judge card. But I'm doing it not to be funny. I'm doing it in all seriousness because I want to get to a deeper, fundamental conversation with Aunt Sally. I want to have a genuine conversation with her, and I want to pierce through her presumptions and all, and I want to get to a substantive conversation with her. So imagine the conversation. Ready? Abortion's wrong. She says to you, why are you so intolerant? Why are you Catholics so judgmental? And then you come back and you say, excuse me, Aunt Sally, are you judging me? I'm feeling a little judged right now. I'm feeling, Aunt Sally, like you think I'm a mean, intolerant person just because I think abortion's always wrong. And at this, she's going to, she might be a little flustered because, she's not used to being accused of being judgmental because that's the worst sin in a secular world. But she'll probably come back and say, well, wait a second, but you're trying to say that this value you have of abortion being wrong, that abortion's wrong for everyone. You're the one being judgmental and imposing your view on everybody. And once she says that, now you've got her. Now you've got her. And you can say, oh, I get it, Aunt Sally. I understand now. You're coming from the perspective of moral relativism. I see. You believe in relativism, right? It seems like you believe that there's no truth that's true for everyone. That everyone can make up their own truth. Each individual can make up their own morality, their own reality. That's why you think I'm being judgmental. I understand now, Aunt Sally. Oh, thank you that this clarifies everything. Now, Aunt Sally, I just want you to know I would love to learn about your relativism. I would love to learn why you think relativism makes sense. Because, you're free to believe in relativism, but you haven't convinced me that relativism makes sense. And I'll be honest with you, Aunt Sally, I'm just not convinced that makes any sense at all. It seems pretty illogical to me. But I am open. I would love to hear why you think relativism makes sense. But the one thing I'm going to ask you is this, Aunt Sally. If you want to look at the world through the lenses of moral relativism, you're free to do that. You're free to wear those lenses. And I respect you as a person. You'll always be my friend. But if you want to believe that each individual makes up their own truth, you're free to believe that. If you want to believe there's no moral structure to the universe, you're free to believe that, Aunt Sally. If you want to have faith in moral relativism, Aunt Sally, you're free to do that. But the one thing I'm going to ask you, Aunt Sally, is this. Please do not impose your faith in relativism on me. Now, don't use that tone of voice. You'll ruin Thanksgiving. I'm on a stage, so I'm being a little more theatrical. But you get the point? See, what's happening is Aunt Sally just thinks, of course, everyone has to believe in relativism. The issue is not abortion. The issue, it is a big issue. Don't get me wrong, but that's not the fundamental issue here. The issue isn't the definition of marriage. The issue isn't the transgender stuff. The fundamental issue is Aunt Sally doesn't believe in truth, a truth that's true for everyone. And she's just assuming that. She's just imposing that. Her philosophy is relativism. She wants all of us to wear these glasses. And I just want to push back on that. That's what Pope Benedict says. We have to resist this imposition of relativism. Just say, whoa, hold on, Aunt Sally. Wait a second here. You haven't convinced me these are the best lenses yet. We're not going to talk about abortion or gay marriage or LBGT. No, I want to talk about the lenses. Let's talk about that. Because I'm not convinced these are the best way to look at the world. I'm open to it. I'd love to hear what you think about it, Aunt Sally, but don't impose these on me. And then once you do that, you can start asking questions. By the way, I think this is really important. We as Catholics are always doing all the defending, all the explaining. Whenever I play sports or any board game, my philosophy is this: the best defense is a good offense. And so, rather than when I'm debating with evangelical Protestants, I don't just go, well, it's okay to, ask Mary to pray for us. It just sounds so, I'm just like, do you want to love Jesus? Do you want to give Jesus the most praise in your life? Then you want to love Mary and say the Hail Mary. Because the Hail Mary is a Jesus prayer. And they're like, whoa. And they're not, I think that's a better approach. And I think that's the same thing here. Let's stop always doing all the answering and all the defending. Let's ask Aunt Sally the questions. Because she's never had to think about relativism. She's just taken it in from the culture. She's never had to apply her mind to it. So let's ask Aunt Sally, so tell me, Aunt Sally, how would society work if everyone just made up their own morality? How would society get along? And let her talk. She's never had to think about it. And the more she talks, the more she's going to go, ooh, this doesn't really make sense. And you say, Aunt Sally, so if I said for me, kidnapping little children's okay, would that make it okay for me? And let her talk. Aunt Sally, if I said raping people's okay, would that make it okay just because that's my opinion? And let her talk. And the more she talks, the more she's going to realize she's skating on thin ice. Because relativism, this is the one thing you have confidence in. No matter how far away your son, your grandchildren, your friend, your brother is away from the church, know that you have truth on your side. That relativism is so illogical. It just doesn't make any sense at all. And yet it's just, everyone's just assumed it. And all you have to do is just start asking a couple of questions. And then suddenly Aunt Sally's going to be a little less confident in her relativism. I'm not doing that to make her uncomfortable. I just want her to be a little humbled and recognize she hasn't thought this all through. And then what I want to do is say, hey, Aunt Sally, so I don't know, that seems pretty weird. I don't think you're going to get good vision there. Can I share with you something over here, Aunt Sally? I've got these lenses over here, and you don't have to wear these. These don't have to be the lenses you take for the rest of your life, but would you be willing to just try it on and see? Can I share with you a different way of looking at the world? It's like when you go to the doctor's office, the eye doctor, and you get that one blurry picture, then all of a sudden, boom, oh, I could see. I think that's what's going to happen here. Because if I can go back and talk to Aunt Sally let me talk to you about law. Law is about love. Let me tell you about the difference between making a judgment. I agree with you. We should never judge people's soul. But Aunt Sally, surely you realize with your own kids that, you want what's good for them. And so you do make judgments. If they do this, make this choice, it's not going to be, you do that, right? So in other words, if I can walk through and there's many other points I would do, and if she tries this on, I think she's going to be able to see reality in a way she's never been able to see before. And that's my hope, that we can pass on to the next generation confidence in the truth, but also a clarity about how to communicate the truth in our secular age today.